Friends, in this episode, we want to share what Vice President-elect Kamala Harris has been talking about the past week on immigration reform. Personally, I think it's very light on the details, but you'll want to stick all the way to the end because we're sharing our top 5 items that we want in this bill, and we know they're not talking about it. So please share this video to your friends, and hopefully at some point elected officials will see this so they'll understand why we need to help you once they get right into the office on January 20th. Number 1, Biden administration wants to provide a pathway to citizenship for people who have TPS or people who qualify as what we call DACA or Dreamers, people who arrived here as a child. Now, and they also want to cut down the process of how long a typical person can take to get citizenship. And that is about on what they call 13 years, and they want to reduce it down to 8 years. Now, for the standard marriage type of case, married to a U.S. citizen, it doesn't take that long. It takes about 5 years from start to finish. But for someone who has, for example, a victim of a crime, it can take a long time because there's caps on U visas, victim of crime, or T visas. There is 10,000 visa cap on U visas. So it creates a backlog just to get the visa itself. And then you have to apply to become a resident. And then after that, after 5 years a resident, then you apply to become a citizen. So it's not just the years that someone has, the visa itself or the resident status itself, it's also including the processing time. And that's what Kamala Harris is referring to. But that's just a very broad thing they're talking about. We need to know the details. There's a lot more people that immigration reform can help, but their plan is very, very broad. It's a skeleton plan right now. We don't know who in Congress is going to approve it. Just because Democrats are in control doesn't mean they're just going to pass it willy-nilly. Of course, any bill that's proposed has to be vetted. There's going to be a process. I think it would be a silly thing for it to be passed very quickly without review, of course, because there's a lot of things on our wish list as immigration attorneys and immigrant advocates. There's a lot of things on our list. And number 1, that is for people who are parents of U.S. citizens, for example. President Obama was trying to get something called DAPA, but it was stopped by the courts. And it's similar to DACA, but it would be for parents. Number 2, there are different restrictions that we call bars. There's a 3-year bar, 10-year bar, and a permanent bar. That is triggered when someone leaves the country. We've had a lot of people ask questions, come to our office, ask, and now by Zoom, but ask if they qualify. And sometimes they don't because they have already left the country, the United States, because they need to go take care of a family member, maybe their parent who was ill, let's say because of COVID, and it triggered let's say a 10-year bar because they had lived in the United States without status for a year or more. The third thing on my wish list is something called 245I. It's a law that was grandfathered by President Bill Clinton. 245I is very significant. 245I was a grandfather law by President Bill Clinton back in 1996. People who would be eligible are those who had a sponsor, a petitioner, file a petition, family-based or employment-based, before April 30th, 2001. And if they could prove, if the applicant could prove, and also if the beneficiary could prove that they had been in the U.S., physically in the U.S. in December the year 2000. And to benefit the government, there's an additional penalty fee of $1,000. Although I know clients don't want to pay a high fee, I know if they have some kind of fee like this, it could benefit both sides. Not that I'm trying to advocate for that, but if there's a way, I have a feeling that Congress will be talking about this. Congress, if you're listening, if you're an elected official, you need to consider this. To extend 245I, at least a period, let's say 2010, if they had a petition filed in before 2010, for example, extend the cutoff date. Now, I know people are worried. I know conservatives are worried about a cutoff date in general, about it, trying to include a lot more people. In this situation, there's a lot of immigrants, living here already for a long time, already contributing to the economy. I'm making an appeal to my conservative friends. This is not a free-for-all situation. I do not call this amnesty. There are some immigration lawyers that will use the word amnesty. I'm pretty sure Democrats will not call it that. Democrats tend not to call it amnesty. This is to help people who are already here in the U.S. Because I know conservatives have been concerned that this will bring more people into the U.S. when this bill could be passed. hopefully within the first couple months of Biden's administration. Now, the fourth thing on my wish list is that the military PIP, parole in place, needs to be in the law. Right now, it's only discretionary by the field office, the local USCIS office, so that could be taken at any time. President Trump was considering to take that away. And so at that time, I believe that was about 1 or 2 years ago, a lot of people were rushing to get these applications in. And that would be a detriment to the American economy, a detriment to the military force, because this benefits people who are family members of military veterans. They're sacrificing their life for America. And the least that America can do is provide legal status, resident status to their family members. The last two that I mentioned, military PIP and 245I, the major benefit of that is if someone had entered America without any documentation, no visa, then they can process their application to become a resident while staying in the United States and not having to even apply for a waiver. Of course, this is assuming this is a clean case and there's no criminal history, no arrest record. So that would have to be discussed later with your attorney if you have something like that. Like I said, again, I have a long list, but the fifth thing on my wish list is put into law, we call codify into the law, include it in the bill to say that people can apply to become a resident while in the US, even when they have a record of being removed from the United States. Now, I know this sounds strange to my conservative friends, but they've been already living here for so long. I have several clients that had a removal order, but they have a lot of family here. They have their own family. And despite against my best advice to leave the country, they have stayed here in the United States on their own will. And it's a tough decision, right? What if you were in this situation where you have family in the United States, everything you know is in the United States and not abroad? They may have come here in the country at a very young age, and they just made a mistake at a very young age, let's say as a teenager, but they've rehabbed themselves, for example, and they have had a clean record ever since that time. Let's say it's 10, 15, 20 years. So elected official, if you're listening to this, please consider it. I'm happy to provide some suggestions that I believe the American people as a whole could agree to. Another thing on our wish list is that it needs to include a provision to allow a waiver for people who have been determined by USCIS to have claimed to be a US citizen. Some people get under the pressure. I can't get into the mind of someone who has claimed to be a US citizen, but some people deserve to still stay here to obtain resident status, even though they claim to be a US citizen. Here's a couple scenarios. One that is very common actually is when a resident goes into the Department of Public Safety, DMV, Department of Motor Vehicle, and what they're trying to do is just renew their driver's license. But a clerk, a government employee, encouraged the applicant to register to vote. Now, I know this is a very hot topic these days, clearly, by number 45, but this doesn't necessarily mean they have went to go vote. It just means they registered. So the mere fact of registering can knock someone out from applying for any future benefit, including to become actually a US citizen. Another scenario, someone has filled out an I-9 form and somehow the US government immigration agencies have obtained this form and it has a check mark for US citizen or US national or resident, or they have a non-immigrant visa with a work permit. But some people feel compelled to check off US citizen, even though they're not a US citizen. Some people make this mistake. I've heard of people who are under 18, like a dreamer, for example, and they have to work. And they've had to mark it because they needed to be able to get a job, to work, to earn money for their family. And so I know it could be tough circumstances for people who felt forced that they had to do that. But if there's a waiver that they can share their story so that U.S. immigration official can read it and understand why they had to do that in the first place. So there's actually a lot of people in these situations, and I hope our politicians, our elected officials consider at least these top 5 things on my wish list. We'll have more information for you coming soon because President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris are coming into office on January 20th. And I know you're looking forward to it just like I am. Until next time, friends, please continue wearing your mask. Take care. Friends, thank you for taking time to watch our channel. Click over here so you can watch our most recent uploads. We'll see you soon.